Hi folks, it's Marvin Music with MedicareSchool.com, and we want to welcome you to our Q&A live event this evening. It's a privilege for us to be able to instruct you tonight and answer your questions. We are going to cover one topic briefly, and then we'll start getting into your questions. Those of you that are new to our group, wanted to let you know that we will answer any question related to Medicare or Social Security. The favor we ask of you is to make sure that when you give us the question that we can understand what you're asking. Don't be so concise, so brief that we can't figure out what you're wanting to know. Okay, so sometimes people are so brief we can't figure that out. So that's rule number one. Be sure that we understand so that we can help. And then number two, if you find that you need immediate assistance, just beyond what we can share right now, throughout the event tonight, there's an 800 number that's at the screen. If you would like to actually talk to a live agent this evening, we're still open. Our office is located in Overland Park, Kansas. We are a nationwide broker. We write in all 50 states. But when you call in, our switchboard is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's Central Time. So wherever you are, we can help you even for the next couple of hours. So feel free to call in. Anyone that you talk with within our company is someone that I have personally trained, I work with day to day. And so they will be definitely expert and will be willing really to serve you in any way that you would like. We are Medicare brokers. So if you decide that you are looking for a Medicare broker, we'd be delighted to serve in that capacity. Keep this in mind real quickly. When you do business with any Medicare broker, whether it's us or anyone, you are never have to pay us. The insurance companies always pay the agent, not you. It's just the cost of insurance companies doing business. They have to pay the agent. You're not obligated to do that. And so whenever you use an agent, whether it's us or someone else, the insurance premiums are actually set by the insurance company. We don't do that. So there's no extra to use a broker. You don't save any money by using a broker. So the point is the price is always the same to you, and there's no cost for our services whatsoever. So whoever you reach out to, which we hope would be us, there's no cost. So keep that in mind. If you want immediate help, we're available tonight till 7 Central Time. Now, I do want to make sure everyone knows that if you have never subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. We put out content on a regular basis. I do a lot of content. We have others within our company that put out great educational content. So if you subscribe to our channel, what that does is it notifies you every time we put a new video out, which is usually 2 a week of the new content, so you can kind of stay up to date on everything that's related to Medicare. And I just want to remind you something, folks, that once you begin to learn these things about Medicare, not only will it help you to make great decisions, but also Medicare is a common topic among people our age. I'm 64, soon to be 65, and so that's the talk of the town, Medicare. So it would allow you to give great information to your friends and coworkers and family members about Medicare as well. So I think there's a double benefit from getting educated about Medicare for yourself, but also for others as well. There's a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion about Medicare, and that's been really the goal of our company now for 16 years, to become the nation's most trusted resource for Medicare education and enrollment assistance. And every day we strive to do that, have a company loaded with people that every day do our best to make sure that people are making great Medicare choices. And so this is one of the ways we do it with an event like this tonight. So let's get into the topic. It's an important one, and it says this: when a medical disaster strikes, what plan do you prefer? All right, and so we're going to talk about that. First of all, let's just talk about medical disasters. How often does that happen? What's the frequency of even having a medical risk? Let me just share a couple stats with you right now. They say that 50% of all seniors today have at least one chronic condition, one serious condition that's not going to go away. They're going to live with it for the rest of their life. It could be diabetes, it could be a heart issue, it could be a lung issue. There's a variety of chronic conditions, and half of all seniors have at least one of those chronic conditions. And the reason for that, and the reason that even matters, is because when we have a chronic condition, we have a much higher probability, a higher risk to having something really bad go wrong, some serious health emergency or a serious issue. Whenever we have these chronic conditions, they tend to lead to other health problems. Therefore, those of us that are Medicare eligible run a higher risk of having a medical crisis occur. Right now in our country, the U.S. spends, and I'm talking about across the board, we spend $4.5 trillion on healthcare today. $4.5 trillion. And what's interesting about that stat is this: 90% of that $4.5 trillion is directed to those who have either a chronic condition, and half of all seniors have one of those, or have a mental health condition. Got it? 4.5 trillion spent. 90% of that money, then almost 4 trillion of that money is actually spent on those who have chronic conditions. So the point is, there is a high risk that we run if we have any kind of a chronic condition. Another interesting stat is this: there's $220 billion of medical debt today. $220 billion of unpaid medical bills, doctor bills, hospital bills, surgery bills, all kinds of bills. $220 billion of medical today debt that's on the books today. And so what's interesting about that $220 billion is that the second largest holder of that medical debt are people that are Medicare eligible. Okay? That's surprising to me. Here they have Medicare, which is wonderful insurance, but they haven't really positioned that Medicare insurance well, and that's why they hold so much debt. And so it's very sad. In fact, over 3 million people have more than $10,000 in medical debt. And again, they're on Medicare. So what's gone wrong? What happened? Well, the majority of them didn't have the right Medicare plan, the right Medicare coverage when they went through some type of financial crisis. The leading cause today of bankruptcy among seniors is medical debt. Okay, so the point is, this is a very important topic that we look at tonight, because we're vulnerable, number one, because of having a chronic condition, to then number two, have some type of a major issue occur. The leading cause today among seniors is cardiovascular disease, heart disease. And so it's a real problem. In fact, over 700,000 people this year will die from cardiovascular disease. You do the math, that's 2,000 people a day. Cancer is the second leading cause, and that's about 1,600 people every day are dying from cancer. And then stroke and unintentional falls. These are the leading causes of death today among seniors. So there is a likelihood that some of you viewing this tonight are going to have some kind of a major medical crisis. The question is, are you going to be happy with the insurance that you select? All right, so I want to share a couple things with you. Of course, when you go on Medicare, you have three options of using your Medicare. You can use A and B only. 10% of all people do that. That's, in my opinion, the worst option. Or you can stay in the original Medicare A and B system under the umbrella of original traditional Medicare with a supplemental plan to fill in the financial gaps. Or you can do a Medicare Advantage plan. Okay, that would be a C plan, a private health insurance company. So statistically, 10% of all people have A and B only. About 40% have supplemental plans or secondary coverage, and about 50% are going to have Advantage plans. And so for me, having A and B only is off the table. I would not even consider that for a second, so I'm not going to waste time on that. So it really boils down to two choices that are good choices, but they're different choices. To have a supplemental plan or to have an Advantage plan. And so the question is, which would you prefer? Now, in my opinion, again, folks, I'm not saying you have to do what I would do, but I believe that people that go through a major crisis are going to be most satisfied if they have a Medicare supplemental plan while they're going through that health crisis. There was cancer or a stroke or a heart issue, diabetes. And the reason for that is because when we have a major crisis, Medicare is not going to pay for anything 100%. We're going to be liable for a balance of the bill. And what we find is that when people have a supplemental plan, they pay a premium for sure every month for that. But then after that, they're almost done as far as spending money out of pocket. So most people prefer having a supplemental plan when they go through a health crisis. Not only financially, but when we go through a health crisis, we're going to have to see multiple doctors, possibly multiple specialists or surgeons. And so when we have a supplemental plan and we're going through a crisis, as long as that provider, that hospital, that doctor, that surgeon, that specialist takes original Medicare, they will take your supplemental plan. They have to. So the point is, with supplemental plans, we never have to deal with any kind of a network issue ever, because we can go to any doctor, any hospital, as long as they take Medicare. The second issue comes as we're going through this crisis, what will be approved and not approved? In other words, what services can we get and not get? Well, again, if I have a supplemental plan, the insurance company cannot have any say-so. Medicare and your doctor make all the decisions. With supplemental plans, there are no pre-authorizations. That insurance company can never deny coverage or delay coverage. If Medicare covers, they will cover because they have to. Thirdly, you can go to any doctor, any provider anywhere in the country, meaning you're not going to be restricted to any form of a network, no pre-authorizations. And so that's a big deal if you have cancer or some heart issue going on or some diabetic type complications, and you're going to experience a medical crisis. Now, the fact is, though, in order to have a supplemental plan, you're going to have to pay a premium for that. Those premiums vary. The majority of people today get a G plan or an N plan. The G plan covers 5 of the 6 Medicare gaps. The one you're responsible for yourself would be the Medicare B deductible. That's once a year. It's $257 this year. Last year it was $240. So every year it bumps up a little bit. But the point is, if I have a G plan, I'm going through a health crisis, I had to pay my premium for the plan, which on average is about $150 a month. Some states are a little bit more, some a little lower, but the point is I have to pay a premium. So I paid $150 a month to be on that G plan, and the only other thing I'm out of pocket is an annual deductible, $257. So if my G plan cost $150 a month, that cost me $1,800 a year, plus my deductible, I spend a little out of pocket over $2,000. But beyond that, I don't have any other out-of-pocket expenses at all. No co-pays, no co-insurance, nothing. It's all going to be covered by Medicare and my G plan. The second most popular plan is called an N plan, and it's close. It's a very good plan. It's not quite as comprehensive as a G, but it's still a great plan. And the N plan, you're responsible for the B deductible. You're also responsible for excess charges if and when they occur. They don't occur often. Less than 5% of doctors charge excess, but when it happens, if you had an N plan, you would have to pay that. Again, it's not a huge risk, just a small risk. And then with an N plan, you have some copays. To go to the doctor, it costs you $20 every time, and you go to the emergency room, it costs you $50. And so that premium is going to be about $40 a month less. And many people today are saying, hey, I'll save the $40 a month. Probably won't have excess anyways. I rarely go to the doctor. And so my point is, if you have a supplemental plan, whether it's a G or an N, you can still go to any doctor that takes Medicare. You never have a pre-authorization, and it's a nationwide type of coverage. And so we're going through a crisis. We're probably going to like that. Now, some of you cannot or don't want to afford the premium on a supplemental plan, and then you're going to have an Advantage plan. And by the way, I think Advantage plans are definitely acceptable insurance. I say supplemental plans are exceptional insurance. Advantage plans are still very acceptable. Tons better than having A and B by itself, because at least with the Advantage plan, I have a max out of pocket. I have some reasonable copays, but at least they put a limit. So I may be on a plan that has a max out of pocket of $5,000 or maybe $10,000, but at least there's a limit. Probably not going to send me into bankruptcy like A and B alone could very easily do. But my Advantage plan still has pre-authorizations, which means the doctor doesn't have the final say-so, the insurance company does. Now, Advantage plans are going to cover things for sure, but they still have the right to say, no, we don't agree with the doctor on this one. We don't think a knee replacement is necessary at this time. We want you to go to therapy for 9 months first. Or no, we really don't think you need an MRI at this time, or a CAT scan or PET scan at this time, and they deny that coverage. Or they could say, we don't think you should be in the skilled nursing facility for more than 15 days. We're not going to pay after that. And so those kind of things happen with Advantage plans. So if we're going through a medical crisis, we're going to find out that there could be some limitations of providers, because not all hospitals take Advantage. And there could also be some restrictions placed upon us, meaning the insurance company has to give that final approval. And so all I'm saying is not that Advantage plans are bad insurance, but the question for tonight is, which plan would you prefer to have if you're going through a medical crisis? The last thing I'd want to have would be A and B only. I think the next best would be then an Advantage plan, but the very best, I think, then would be a supplemental plan. But folks, you have to be able to, or want to be able to afford that premium, because a lot of Advantage plans have zero premium. You pay Medicare, that $185 a month, but the plan doesn't charge you a premium. Instead, you pay as you go. So if I'm going through a medical crisis, I'm going to pay as I go until I hit the max out of pocket. Again, maybe $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. It varies plan to plan and depending upon where you get your services. And so tonight, if I'm making the decision and I can afford a supplemental plan, the G or the N, I think I would definitely go that direction, knowing that there is a possibility that if I have a chronic condition, that there's a high possibility that I'm going to have eventually sometime in my life some type of a medical crisis. Now, I'll close with this, and that's this, folks. Many times, as people make this decision, going into Medicare at 65 or 66 or 67, they may be healthy, and they look at the premium on an Advantage plan, zero. And they look at some of the perks that Advantage plans offer, maybe a dental allowance, hearing aids, gym membership, those kind of things, and they're very attracted to those. And that's fine because those are legitimate perks that are offered. But you can't just look at yourself as being 65 or 67 and healthy, because one day you're going to be 85 and may not be so healthy. And what happens is we have to make this very important decision when we first go on Medicare, because in most states, if I'm on an Advantage plan for a year, 2 years, 5 years, or 7, whatever, and I want to get off of that and get a supplemental plan, I have to medically qualify to do that. And so if your health changes, you may not be able to get off your Advantage plan, and you may have to be on that Advantage plan for the rest of your life. You can't get a supplemental plan in most states today except the first 6 months of being on Medicare. Whether that's 65 or 67, they give you this enrollment period, and you have 6 months where there's no underwriting. Insurance companies have to take you. They cannot charge you extra. They must cover your pre-existing conditions. They can never cancel that policy ever. That's a 6-month window tied to your B date. And then if you want a supplemental plan after that 6 months of B date, then you're more than likely going to have to medically qualify. And so you don't want to miss that opportunity. Okay, so which would people prefer? They were going to prefer to be on a supplemental plan. Okay, now I'm going to close with this, and I'm going to take questions. Listen, this just came in. In fact, let me do this. I got a couple of them here. Let me just read a couple testimonials. And I didn't ask for these. These just came in. I had a lady write to me and said, "Dear Marvin, I just wanted to thank you for all your Medicare YouTube presentations. They're professional, easy to understand, especially for seniors, and your sincerity is always shown through. You have taught me invaluable information of which I shall be forever grateful." And here's what she says. "I lost my husband in August due to a premature," this goes back to 2022. "I lost my husband in August of 2022 due," listen folks, "to a premature discharge from a skilled nursing facility from a Advantage plan." She names a company, I won't. And she said he was 74 years old. A premature discharge on an Advantage plan. Why does that happen? Because in those situations, the algorithm says you have this certain disease. We stop coverage after 15 days, after 20 days, whatever. And so they moved him out, discharged him from the skilled nursing facility against clinical evidence. He has to leave, and she says he died as a result of that. And again, this happens all the time with Advantage plans. Now, you're healthy and 65. You don't think about this. You're not thinking about having a chronic condition, a stroke or something, but it could happen. And how is that plan going to handle you if you go through one of these crises? Listen to this one. This is a gentleman that wrote to me, and he says, "I was diagnosed with cancer in July," and this goes back 2 years as well. He says, "I began 6 weeks of daily radiation treatments and chemotherapy, weeks 1 and 5. Over $125,000 was billed to Medicare, and that was just the treatments. Since then, I've had multiple PET scans, CAT scans, MRIs, visits with surgical oncologists at Sarah Canyon Cancer Center." He said, "I paid an annual deductible. Of course, this year that would be $257, and nothing more than that. Without Medicare and my supplemental plan G, I could never have been able to afford anything close to those costs. I was forced to retire," and he goes on. And his whole point is that he was on a plan that he had to pay for. And again, that was that plan G. But at the end, because of all the money he would have been out of pocket, he didn't have to pay that. That's the whole point. One more. And folks, listen, this just came in today. And this is from one of our clients, very, I think, right on topic. Here's what he says. He says, 2 years ago, your team guided my wife and me to ACE Medicare supplemental plan. When we took out the policies, we thought we were both in excellent health. within those 2 years, his wife had a heart attack, and I had a major surgery for prostate cancer. Our out-of-pocket costs were less than $1,000 for each of us, rather than the tens of thousands of dollars we'd have been out of pocket with Advantage plans. We invested a bit more each month than we would have had to had we taken Advantage plans, but we have saved tens of thousands of dollars in doing so. Thank you for your team's excellent advice. Okay, so, and I appreciate it. I don't know this gentleman personally, one of our clients, but we can multiply that times thousands of people who've had that kind of experience. And so, folks, the whole point is this. Be sure when you go into making this decision, you don't just look at today. Look at the possibility of what could happen. Hey, I have homeowners insurance. I've had it for, 40 years? But you know what? I'm not going to cancel it. Even though my home has never burned down, it could happen, and I want the best coverage possible. And that's what could happen. You could have a serious heart issue, serious diabetic issue, a stroke or whatever. And these things are very, very costly. But if you get the right kind of coverage, you're going to be pleased with that decision. And I'll close with this, and I'll take questions, folks. Listen, I know how it is in the market today. Many, many agents, not all, but many, many agents push Advantage plans and only Advantage plans, and they try to package that as though it's the next best thing to slice bread. And they do that because it's in their best interest when you sign up on an Advantage plan. Why? Because we get paid twice the initial commission and lifetime residual income. So it is very advantageous for agents to push Advantage plans because it puts lots more money in our pocket. But the question is it in your best interest? And I believe it is in your best interest to get an Advantage plan if you cannot afford a monthly premium on a supplemental plan. That's when I would get one. But if you can afford a little extra, that $110 a month or that $150 a month to get a supplemental plan, I think you're going to be happier in the long term, and most certainly happier if you have a medical crisis. All right. Okay, Daniel's our producer, does a great job of really leading our efforts through these events and our YouTube channel, and he's in with me in studio tonight, so he'll be the one giving me the questions. So Daniel, let's get started. All right, retiring 7/1/25 on my 65th birthday. I'm medical heart valve, planning on an implant. Is that suitable, sufficient? Absolutely. Dave, as I said earlier, I think G or N are both wonderful options. If you have an implant, take on a little more risk, not much, but a little bit more. And so I think that's wise, but do keep this in mind, and maybe you know this, Dave, but because you're, if you're saying to me that you turn 65 7/1, that means you're going to start your Medicare in June, here in just a couple days. Keep that in mind, because when we're born on the first day of the month, our Medicare coverage always begins the previous month. If you're born July 2nd, your Medicare would begin in July, but because you're born on the 1st, if that's indeed the case, you're going to start 1 month earlier. Again, with this mechanical heart valve, unless you live in New York, Connecticut, Maine, or Massachusetts, you will only have this opportunity when you first start Medicare to get a supplemental plan, because after that, you'll never get one, because all states but those four, New York, Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, require you to go through underwriting after 6 months of your Medicare B date. Okay, so I think that's a great decision, Dave. That's what I would do. All right, let's keep going. Okay, can you switch from a G to an N? And if so, when and how could we partner with you to help us with the transaction? Yes, you can partner with us. We write in all 50 states. Be delighted to serve as your Medicare broker. Now, let's talk about switching. There are the majority of states where the way to switch from a G to an N after 6 months of your Medicare B date, that's called the Medigap OEP, 6 months of B date. And by the way, just as a note, folks, if you're going to go on Medicare, you don't have to wait for your B date to begin to get a supplemental plan. In most states, we can start writing plans 3 to 6 months in advance of your B date. Now, your MedSup plan is not going into effect until your Medicare does, but you don't have to wait. You can make that decision, again, 3 to 6 months in advance. I would suggest you do that. But if someone hasn't made that decision, when their B starts, they're still within their window of 6 months to get a Medigap policy, anyone sold in their state that they're eligible for, and there's no underwriting. No extra premiums. The insurance company cannot deny you. They will approve that policy. But after 6 months, and by the way, you always count your birth month. So let's say I'm turning 65 this month. My 6 month would be May, June, July, August, September, October. And then November 1 on, now I'm in my 7th month thereafter. And then if I want to get a supplemental plan, now I have to go through medical underwriting. So 3 to 6 months before your B date, you can apply. and then 6 months after your B date, you're still within that eligibility period where the insurance companies have to approve you. Now, as far as switching, there are some states that are called birthday rule states. Birthday rule states. And what this means is that this is a state that has told the insurance companies that there's a window of time almost always tied to your birthday. Now, this varies. Some states it's 30 days before your birthday, 30 days after. Some day it's from your birthday for the next 30 days. Some birthday next 60, some birthday next 90. But this is window of time around your birthday where you can change carriers and change plans, G to G or G to N. G to G, G to N. We call that like to like or like to less. That's the majority of the birthday rule states. Let me mention a couple of those. I think there's, I'll just start telling you. We'll start on the West Coast. California, Oregon, Washington are birthday rule states. Now listen, during this time, you have to be on a supplemental plan to be able to exercise this birthday rule right around your birthday. So we already own a supplemental plan. So that would be California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Nevada, Oklahoma, Louisiana. Now, by the way, Louisiana, you can't change carriers, but you can change plans. Missouri has a law, same rule, but it's not birthday, it's tied to the anniversary of the policy. Illinois allows it. You have to be between 65 and 75 in Illinois, have to stay with the same carrier. Kentucky has this, Maryland has this, Virginia has this. And so the point is, in these states that have birthday rules, you normally can move like to like or like to less, G to G, G to N, with no underwriting involved. And again, a couple states, you have to stay with the same insurance company, but you can change those plans. And again, you call in, we'll help you with all this. We really will. But I'm just trying to let you know that the majority of states, for you to move these plans, you're going to have to medically qualify to do that after 6 months. So unless you live in a birthday rule state, you need to look at this as though this could be a long-term decision, and that's fine, as long as you're going with a company that is rate stable. All companies, all plans go up. They all go up. But there are some companies that tend to take more drastic price increases and more frequent price increases. And so we want to avoid those companies. And so part of our research that we do with you is talking about the carriers in your area, the initial premiums, as well as the stability of those rates. And that's the service that we provide for our clients. All right, let's keep going. All right, Susan, I have Medicare Part A only, but they have been charging me for Part B for over a year. Can I get my money back? It was their mistake. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, first off, Susan, if you have A and B, my initial thought was, are you on Social Security? Yeah, are you on Social Security? Because remember, anyone that's on Social Security is automatically enrolled in Medicare A and B. Now, you don't have to keep Medicare B if you're on Social Security, as long as you have a group plan of 20 or more people. So you're covered by a work plan, you don't have to keep B. So we disenrolled from Part B by filling out a form called a 1763, or we actually mail back on our Medicare card, letting them know we don't want our Medicare B. Folks, listen, if you're on Social Security, you have to have A. You can't get out of A. But you don't have to have B if you or your spouse are working, you have a good group plan. So Susan, I'm assuming that must have been you. And so here's the way it works. If you can prove that you disenrolled from B, or they enrolled you in B and you didn't want it, then I think you have a leg to stand on here, okay? If you can prove it in writing, somehow that you wrote a letter or you filled out a form or you did something saying, I don't want Part B. If you have no proof of that, then I don't think there's much hope here. But if you have proof of that, what I would do is I would deal through your local Social Security office and let them know what's going on. They may refund that since it was their mistake, as long as you can prove that. Now listen, Susan, the only way I would do this if you or your spouse were still working and you're covered by an employer plan that has 20 people in it or more, that'd be the only way. I would not take Part B. Everyone else should be on Medicare A and B unless their spouse are still working and covered by an employer-provided plan, 20 or more people. And so if that's you and you have proof of that, I think you'll be able to get your money back. It may take a while, but I definitely would do that. And there's a form, I'm blanking right now on the name, but you can call your local Social Security office and tell them, and you can fill that particular form out, and it's basically a kind of a reconsideration of what happened, and you explain what happened and send that to the local office, and see if you can make some progress. All right, so hopefully that helps. I don't know enough to give you more advice than that. All right, let's keep going. Deb, I'll be getting inheritance this year. Will that boot me into IRMA? And if so, do you guys help? I am one of your satisfied customers. Okay, so I don't know what type of inheritance you're getting, but if that inheritance carries with it no income tax liability, okay? So an inheritance with no income tax liability that would not have to be reported on your tax return as taxable income, then I don't believe that that is going to cause you to have an IRMA. Now, I want to share this with you. I'm a financial advisor. I have a license to help people with investments and all that kind of stuff, but I am not an accountant, okay, Deb? And I don't want to pretend to be. I'm familiar with all the tax laws, but I'm still not an accountant, so I think the best thing to do is be sure to talk to your accountant about that. But again, anything that's reported on your IRS, your 1040 form, that is subject to taxes, then that would count towards IRMA. But if not, it should not at all. Okay, let's keep going. All right, you said at Plan D will add an expensive drug to a formulary even as a Tier 5. I couldn't even get my plan to give me a simple tier exception from Tier 2 to Tier 1, let alone a formulary exception. Okay, William, when you asked this question last week or the week before, what I was saying is I have seen times when a company will add a drug to a formulary. I've seen that happen plenty of times in my career. Now, just because your company wouldn't give you a tier exception doesn't mean that what I said was wrong, okay? I would tell you that tier exceptions are more rare than adding a formulary exception. It's a whole different ballgame. And you got to keep in mind, William, if Tier 2 to Tier 1, there cannot be a big price difference. As a general rule, most Tier 2s, they're preferred brand medications. They're reasonably priced. Now, Tier 1 may have a zero copay for you. You may like that to go to a zero copay, but again, that is not a real issue. What you talked about last week when you have no medication formulary and you wanted them to add it, and I said, will they do that, even if it's going to be a Tier 5? I said that is a general rule. That's what happens, okay? So we're not comparing apples to apples here. The apple is adding a drug to a formulary. The orange that you're asking me about is a tiering exception. Two different animals. They really, really are. So sorry for any error there or any confusion on your part, but we're not dealing with the same thing. Let's keep going. All right, regarding the trial period, if I sign up initially for Medigap and then switch to Advantage and then switch back to Medigap with the medical review we waived, it would be. So let's talk about that though. So what Gary is saying is, let's say you're turning 65, even 67, doesn't matter, and you're first going on Medicare, and you selected a Medigap policy, and then let's say you're on that Medigap policy for a year, 3 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. However long you're on that Medigap policy, if you decide during the Medicare open enrollment period, which is only this one in your case, October 15th to December 7th, it's the only time you could do this. October 15th to December 7th, you make a decision to move to an Advantage. You can do so. That Advantage plan will go into effect January 1. And during the whole 12 months of that situation, you are in your Advantage trial period, which means that if you decide you're no longer happy or whatever, even your health, it doesn't matter, any reason, anytime during those 12 months, you can move back to the same MedSup plan that you had before. That company has to take you back. Now, the rate may be higher because you could be a year older or whatever, but the point is they have to take you back. You can't just pick any plan you want. If you had a G, you're going back to a G. If you had an N, you're going back to an N, and you have to be with the same carrier. So not all carriers have to take you, but the one you came off of does. That's a trial right. Okay, now, so the trial right is always a 12-month period. Now, what happens for people that first go on Medicare at 65, I'm talking 65 only, those kind of people in that situation have a full 12 months from when they first started on their Medicare A and B. If they go with Advantage, they're within 12 months. They can get off the Advantage anytime, any reason during that 12 months, and then get a supplemental plan of their choice, any company, any plan they want, depending upon age. Now, I want to clarify something. Listen, when I say any plan, just remember that if you are starting Medicare after 1/1/2020, which is most of you watching this probably, 1/1/2020, you cannot get a Medigap F or a Medigap C. Those are off limits to you. If someone started Medicare before 1/1/2020, they can still get a C or an F Medigap plans. But after 1/1/2020, those are no longer possibilities. That's why I'm saying today, people are getting G and N plans. Prior to that, people got F plans. And so when we talk about this trial right, whatever plan you're on, you can go back to. So if you were on an F plan and moved to Advantage, you got to go back to an F or G. And I think you got that now. The other thing that matters is if you go on Medicare right at 65 and you're in this 12-month trial right and you want to get off the Advantage and go to a supplemental plan, then you can get a G plan or an N plan. Those both would be options for you. Okay, so you have that right to do that. Now, here's where it gets tricky because this varies from state to state, folks. Let's say that someone takes Medicare A only at 65, and then they pick up B 2 years later, and they start their Medicare B. In all states, those people do not have a 12-month trial right. If they go ahead and start with an Advantage and then want to move to a supplemental plan in some states, they can't do that without underwriting. So it just depends on where you live, how the 12-month trial right starts if you begin with an Advantage plan and when you did that. Okay, so we just can't have a blanket approach saying everyone gets a 12-month trial right. That's not true. Everyone at 65 has a 12-month trial right. Everyone that moves from everyone that moves from SUP to Advantage has a 12-month trial right, but after that, it varies state to state and carrier to carrier. All right, let's keep going. Who pays the medical debt after a person dies that didn't have enough insurance? Well, you know what? My view of that is that that debt would be then attached to their estate. And so if there are any assets within the estate, then I believe the estate would be obligated to pay that debt. I'm assuming if it was a spouse, the living spouse would still be obligated to pay that debt. I do not think that children are, unless, again, there's money in the estate. But again, I'm certainly not an attorney, an accountant or whatever, so that you can ask that question to other people. But I think my understanding would be spouse would be obligated, estate would be obligated, but I don't think children are at all. Okay? All right, let's keep going. All right, Bridget, how does one know they're going to be excess charged with a specific provider, or are you just surprised once the billing comes in? Oh no, you can find out very easily for sure, Bridget, and that is by asking the provider. And by the way, the providers are not going to hide this from you. They actually have to disclose this to you that they're going to charge the extra 15%. And I've already said it's not real common. I think less than 5% of doctors do it anyway, so it's not a high probability. But those that do it are doing it for a reason. Typically, it's just because you're in a field where there is a tremendous amount of more education, more technology involved maybe in their practices, and they just say, hey, we like what Medicare pays, but it's just simply not enough. Okay? And so that's just the way it works. Now, if you're on an Advantage plan, there's no excess charges, but at the Advantage plans, there's certainly plenty of doctors and hospitals that won't take them at all. So I think you're still better off in original Medicare with the supplemental plan. But if you feel like that extra $40, $50 a month you save on the N versus the G is really important in your budget, then I would get an N plan. And some people say, hey, the $40 isn't going to make or break me. I'll go ahead and get the most comprehensive. Both are fine decisions, folks. You know, we're all different. It's just a matter of how much risk do you want. But again, still minimal risk. But you can ask them and they will tell you. We used to tell people to go to a website and you could find them all, but we've learned that is not a reliable website whatsoever. We don't even talk about it anymore because it's not accurate. And the terminology is this. You have doctors that charge excess. They're either called a non-assignment doctor or a non-participating provider. Okay? Non-participating provider means they don't participate in that fee for schedule payment as full. In other words, they don't take the Medicare reimbursement rates as payment in full. They don't. So they're a non-participating doctor. Participating doctor is under a contract that says they will take the Medicare reimbursement rates as payment in full. Now, they can still bill you for your 20% coinsurance if you don't have a Med Sup plan, so they can still bill the patient, but they can't add that extra 15%. A non-participating provider can. So participating provider is under an assignment contract. Non-participating provider did not sign that contract. And just so you know, there are some doctors that don't take Medicare at all. This is only 1% of all docs, and they would be concierge docs or docs that have opted out of the Medicare system. And the majority of doctors that have opted out are psychiatrists. About half of them are. All right, but only 1% don't take Medicare. All right, let's keep going. Okay, how do I get glucose sensors? Okay, yeah, continuously, they're covered. They are for sure. Tried at Costco, but told RX Insurance did not cover it. Okay, well, I think that you're, hey, Daniel, Google that real quickly. I was thinking that they're called continuous glucose monitors. I thought they were covered by Medicare Part B. As long as you're going to a provider that has a contract to be able to supply them. So who covers continuous glucose monitors? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's considered durable medical equipment, so it is covered under Part B. So if you went to Costco and you gave them your Part D card, then I could see why they would not cover that. So have Cigna for G as well as Humana Rx. So what you need to do is I would Google or you know whatever search engine you use and try to find someone in your area that is a durable medical equipment provider. DME is what it's called, and that means they have a contract and they can actually fill those prescriptions, and it will be A and B first, and then your Cigna plan will pay second. Now in this scenario, what's happening, if you have a G plan, you have to meet your B deductible, so they could apply, the $257 could apply to the deductible, then after that, those glucose monitor would be covered at 100%. So you just simply try to get it covered through the wrong source, not through D as in drug plans, but through Medicare B. All right. So they have to have a contract to supply those, or they won't. What happens when the Advantage plan you're in contract with cancels coverage? Okay, well, when that happens, it's normally happens effective December 31. So what you would have to do is you would have to get a different Advantage plan. What they'll do is they'll notify you normally around September or so, October, and then they'll cancel the plan effective January 1. So during the Medicare open enrollment season, AEP we call it, annual enrollment period, October 15th to December 7th, you find a different Advantage plan, and then you can select that plan. Another thing that you can do if your Advantage plan is canceled, you actually are eligible to pick up a supplemental plan. F if you started Medicare before 1/1/2020, G if you started after 1/1/2020, and you can actually get a supplemental plan with no underwriting required. And that happens when people move as well. They have the right to do that. So if I lose my Advantage, that's what I can do. Get a new one during Medicare AEP, or you can move to a supplemental plan that would go in effective January 1 as well with no underwriting. You just have to have proof that that policy was indeed terminated. Okay. Hey, Daniel, I'm going to have, folks, give me just one brief second. I've been standing. I've got to sit. My back is killing me. I got a terrible back. Hauled a lot of hay when I was a kid and played football, and my back is not strong. So I'm going to sit down real quickly. And okay, thank you. All right. We are back. I usually have to do that during these long events here. So I love to stand if I could the whole time, but can't endure it anymore. All right, Daniel will give us another question here in just a second. And there it is. Okay, there we go. Do I miss the opportunity to get Plan G since I did not sign up May 2024? No. Here's the if your birthday is in May, then you still have 6 months of your Medicare B date, so you're fine. So when we first go on Medicare, whether that's at 65, we have A and B, or maybe we have B after we retire and we're 67. But that B date is the key date to determining how long you have to get a Medicare supplemental plan without underwriting. So if your birthday's in May, we have all of May, June, July, August, September, October. So you're fine from May 1 to October 31 to enroll into a plan. Now for me, I do it ASAP because you're obligated for all the gaps that exist in Medicare. And if you even got an Advantage plan, you're still within the 6 months of that B date, you're fine as well. So you have not missed your opportunity based upon what you're telling me here that you did not sign up in May. It's not a big deal at all. 6 months of B date before you had lost that right. All right, let's keep going. Okay. Okay, April Fool. I've been on SSDI over 20 years. Husband retired. I'm 63. I have A and B and G at a cost. For G, at a cost. For G, will my costs go down when I'm 65? Okay. April Fool, yes. So a couple things are going to happen in your situation. And folks, this is someone that was on Social Security disability because of some kind of a physical illness. And what happens is once we are approved for Social Security disability payments, regardless of age, on the 25th month of having received those Social Security checks, on the 25th month, our Medicare A and B begins. Okay, and again, you could be 42, you could be 29, you could be 60. It doesn't matter. But we are coming on a Medicare on the 25th month of receiving Social Security disability checks. So we call that your IEP-1. But what happens for you, April Fool, when you hit 65, you're going to have a second opportunity. So basically, you can reset the clock. And so what's going to happen, your B premium is not going to be adjusted. But what happens is you can apply for a new supplemental plan G or an N plan, either one of those, and now you'll be rated just for a normal 65-year-old person, because many times when you have a supplemental plan like you have G, and you came in because of disability, most states allow insurance companies to charge you a higher rate. So what I would do is I'd look at the rates and call us. We'll help you with this, and let's reshop this, and let's see what your rates would be just for normal G plans and normal N plans. Again, there'll be no underwriting involved, and there's no penalty that can be added at that time. So this is called your IEP-2, and we'd be happy to shop that for you. Now, it could be that even though you have the eligibility to get a supplemental plan, maybe your rate is still, your existing plan is still better and fine, good. They're not going to cancel it on you, but I would reshop that to make sure that you're getting the best rate, and you have the right to do that, okay? And that's 7 months, 3 months before 65, and then 3 months after that, you can actually shop that. And then you're still within the window, 6 months of your B date, all right? Okay, good question. Here we go. In Union, they have banked hours, okay? And we say we can wait 8 months to sign up for Medicare after we quit working after age 65. Are banked hours considered the same as COBRA? Who and will penalize us? Okay, I'm definitely familiar with the banked hours. I've helped a lot of people that were actually actors and actresses in a union guild, and they used the banked hours. So I'm familiar with that. So can they say we can wait 8 months to sign up for Medicare after we quit working, after age 65? Okay, that is a good question. And a normal, what they're saying is that you qualify for an SEP. So once the banked hours end, but I tell you what I want you to do. Listen, let's do this. If you don't mind, let me research this question for you, okay? Because I know what you're implying. Someone has said that you have 8 months to sign up for B, and your insurance will continue to be first payer, only payer. COBRA is going to your union plan would pay second to Medicare, or will pay first. That's what we have to find out. So do me a favor. I want you to call our office. You see the number there, and I want you to ask for Christina, and tell Christina that you posed this question during our live event, and Marvin couldn't answer it. I didn't have the confidence to answer it. So we will check into this. Daniel, can you take a screenshot of that so we know his scenario? And sir, if you'll call in, or ma'am, whoever it is, and ask for Christina and tell her that we had this conversation, then she will reach out to me, let me know that you called, and then I will do the necessary research to get you an accurate answer on that. Okay, and I'm sorry I can't. I haven't ran into banked hours, honestly, for several years now. But I just don't want to give you wrong information. But I'm happy to help. So ask for Christina. She's in our customer support team, and she will get your information, and I'll reach out to you with the right answer. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, more information on high deductible G, please. We're healthy and used to very high deductible. Okay, Janet, the high G plans are, here, let me say, here's the issue. High G plans right now, I think they're $2,900 deductible before the plan pays anything. Medicare pays first, and then of course, after you've met your deductible, then the high G kicks in. And so what happens is, I know you're saving premium, and that may be you're comfortable with the risk, and the lower premium is nice. The only issue with the high G is if you ever want to get off of it. In most high G plans, to get off of it and go to a normal G or go to an N, you're going to have to medically qualify. So as long as you say to me, hey, Marvin, I'm comfortable with the high G for the rest of my life, then, hey, that's a fine option. The majority of people are not comfortable with that just because they don't want that deductible exposure. But if you have plenty of assets and that's not an issue with you, just know you got to meet it before you get help from any help from the insurance company, and you have to qualify to get off. And so that's my view on that. We don't write many of those at all. Most people are not interested in that kind of risk nor the permanency of that. But again, that's up to you, Jana. I don't think that's an unwise decision if you're comfortable with being in that position. I do know there's some innovative Gs, they're called, where you can have a high G, and then after 2 years you can convert with no underwriting, so you get to save premium for 2 years. That may be all right. Again, we just don't write a lot of high Gs because most people are looking for more comprehensive coverage, more permanent coverage. Okay, so that's my opinion. Let's keep going. All right, Omnipod insulin pump website says they are covered under Part D, not Part B. Okay. Okay, well, we're talking about a different item here. So my plan is to sign up with Humana's Part D, Omnipod not on their formulary. Would I be paying 100% for Omnipod? Okay, so the administration of insulin, or the insulin that's inside of that, would be covered by a Part D plan. That is not durable medical equipment. So I would agree with that. Omnipods would be covered by a Part D plan if they're in formulary. What I would do, if you know that that particular Humana plan, it's not in formulary, I would find out, are there any other formularies that include that? And it's very easy to search that out. If you find that all of them will not, then I would suspect that what's going on is it's a prior authorization medication, prior authorization. And so what I would do is want to call the plan and find out if it's prior authorization, is this something once we've submitted the proper paperwork, will the plan approve it? And so that's what you'd have to find out. And I don't have a lot of experience, honestly, with people using the Omnipods that are on Medicare. Did you do a quick search on that, Ernie? Okay, yeah. So anyways, but again, there are, in most zip codes, we're going to have anywhere from about 12 to 15 different drug plans available. And so you could do a search, Medicare.gov or our site, and you can see if there's any plans that will cover it. So if you see across the board no coverage, then I would dig a little deeper and find out, is it a formulary exception? Is it a prior authorization? Because if it is, then that may be another way that you can get that covered. And by the way, Humana has good drug plans. I think they have 2 or 3 of them in most markets right now. And so if it's not going to be covered, then you would be 100% responsible for that if it's not in formulary. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Okay, Part D question. Wife taking Trimfia, I guess, Humana insurance, $30 per month. Will she need to be pre-authorized each year? WellCare Zero also has that on their formulary. Can we switch to WellCare? Okay, let's address the issue with this medication. I don't know how you say it, Trimfia. I'm not positive on that. But if it is a prior authorization medication, then my understanding is that you would have to get that prior authorization approval each year because the plans change each year. Now, what you can always do is call Humana and ask them, say, hey, if I stay with you all on the same plan the following year, if it's still available, do I have to do a prior authorization? They may tell you no. But I do know if a plan changes, then you are going to have to go back through that. But again, it shouldn't be a huge issue. If they approved it once, I don't know why they wouldn't approve it again. Again, the WellCare plan is zero premium. And you say it is on their formulary, so did you have to have a prior authorization with them? I would not be afraid of the WellCare plan. I can just tell you where some people get burned on that WellCare zero premium plan is if they're on a Tier 3 medication, oftentimes the copay is about 25 to 30% of the cost. And so if I know I'm going to be on a Tier 3 medication, I may be better off paying a little bit more of a premium and have a lower copay. And so, again, it just varies. But that WellCare plan is fine. It's probably the most strict formulary, but it works for millions and millions of people. But I wouldn't just switch because of premium. What I would do, I'd go on Medicare.gov or our site and look on there, put the medications in, and then let that technology shop all the plans, and then you can open the details of those plans to see how that's going to be covered. Are there prior authorizations? Are there formulary exceptions required on that? And what would be your out-of-pocket expense? Because if you have to meet a deductible like you have to on the WellCare Zero plan, that's $590 this year. And so I know if it's going to be Tier 3 up on the WellCare Zero, you have to pay the first $590, and then you start paying co-insurance or co-pays. And so that's my problem with that plan when it comes to people that have expensive meds. Normally, you spend more on that zero premium plan out of pocket than you would if you had a plan that charges a small premium, $30 or $40, that covers that drug differently, meaning you don't have a deductible to meet or you have a lower copay versus a co-insurance. All right, so can't answer it exactly because I don't have those two plans ahead of me, but that's the kind of things I'd be looking at as I make that decision. All right, let's keep going. Here we go. Bridget, after the trial period, you move to another state. If I stay with the same carrier and the same plan G, will I be required to go through medical underwriting? Okay, no. The trial period, remember, it only applies to Medicare Advantage plans. So after the trial period, you move to another state. So what I'm assuming you're talking about is if you are on a G plan or an N plan and you move anywhere, supplemental plans are always portable. You take them with you. You don't have a trial period. It's your policy for life. So if there's a G or an N, any state you move to, you just take the plan with you. Supplemental plans cannot be canceled by the insurance carrier when you move. They can only be canceled by the carrier when you don't pay the premium. So as long as you pay the premium, that is your policy for life, regardless of where you live. Now, if you move somewhere where rates are higher, that happens from time to time. If let's say you live in Arizona and you move to New York, your rate's going to go up a little bit because you're now in New York and medical expenses are higher there, medical costs. So when you move with the supplemental plan, you take it with you, but the carrier does have the right to re-rate you. And usually it's insignificant. It's usually not a big deal. It could be in some cases, but usually it's minimal. Okay, let's keep going. Does Florida have a superior advantage plan versus other states? Well, what Florida has is they have more advantage plans because there's such a huge senior population. It has caused those advantage plans to really be very attractive because of the competition. And so when I say superior, I would say Florida advantage plans are probably superior to those that are in North Dakota or those that may be in some state that's not heavily populated, because the more people you have that want advantage plans in the market, it just drives those prices down and causes those companies to offer more benefits. And so that's why it would be superior. They're still going to work the same way. You still have pre-authorizations and you still have networks and all that. But as far as the max out-of-pockets and the co-pays and the perks, I would say yes, those would be far better in Florida than really anywhere else. There's some places in Texas that are very much a senior market where they would also be attractive. Okay? All right. 73 of continuous insurance and it may drop below 20. Good. I have advised both telling me to add Plan B in June and others say end of year. Okay, well, and in May dropped below 20. Well, I will tell you, Joe, I've never had that exact situation occur. I've never read anything where you would do this end of year. That doesn't make sense to me. I've never read that ever. So here's the issue you run into, Joe. If you had, now that you're below 20, and you had a large claim, that insurance company has the right to now become the second payer because Medicare A and B pays first when the group plan is 19 or less. Now, if that insurance company that has you covered at work has said you have to the end of the year and they will give that to you in writing, then go ahead and put it off. For sure, it's fine, meaning they're saying we're going to cover you just like we have all year, even though employee count changed. But if you can't be confident of that, then for the little bit of money, I wouldn't take the risk. I would go ahead and enroll in B. It's $185 a month unless you're high income, $185. And then what's it cost you to be on that company plan? If the company's paying for all of it, then, just keep it. But if you're paying for it and you can get a good supplemental plan in or a good supplemental plan G at a lower cost, then drop it all together and take A and B and get a supplemental plan and do that ASAP. So again, if the insurance company says they'll cover it to the end of the year and you have that in writing, no problem. They pay first like they have been, then that's fine. It's an annual plan. I'm good with that. But if you don't have that guarantee, I've just never had that experience when someone dropped below 20 and there was a claim. Officially, I know they don't have to pay second. They don't have to pay first any longer. They pay second. Okay? So talk to them a little bit more, get some more information. All righty, Carla, my husband starts a new job soon that offers insurance to he and I. Can we drop Medicare Part B in our supplemental insurance and then pick it up again down the road when he fully retires? Okay, Carla, you can do that, no problem. But here's what I want to make sure of. If you drop your B now in your supplemental plan, and let's say he works for 2 more years, what's happening and what you're asking me for, Marvin, do we qualify for an SEP, a special enrollment period? And the answer to that is yes, as long as from the moment he loses his next job, this new job he's getting, from that moment, moving back all the way to 65. So if he's 68 or 69, we have to go all the way back to 65, and there can be no gaps in coverage. He either had to have active employment with insurance or had to be on Medicare every single one of those months. So as long as we can prove that and verify that, it is fine for you all to drop your B and to drop your supplemental plans. But if he has any missing months in there, then you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You will not have an SEP, okay? And keep this in mind. If any of those months included COBRA, you don't qualify. It has to be active employment insurance or Medicare. And that active employment insurance could be you, could be him. It doesn't matter, as long as we can verify that. And we verify that with a form called an L564. Okay, so as long as you know in your heart, hey, we've had coverage every single month, we can prove it, Medicare or active insurance back to 65, you were good to go. If you get a good group plan, drop the B, drop the sup, you'll be fine. All right, let's keep going. Okay. My husband and I would like to get emeritus dental insurance as offered in our state. Can we sign it for? Absolutely. In fact, we are probably one of the largest emeritus brokers in the country. We write their plans. It's not the only one we write. It varies state to state, but if that's the one you want, call us. You can call right now and speak to an agent, and then be happy to enroll you in that emeritus plan. Most markets, they have 3 different types of coverage. But we'd want to check, make sure your dentist takes it, and you're happy with the plan, happy with the premium. But it is a good plan. In fact, that's the one I'm on. I have my whole family on emeritus. Okay, let's keep going. All right, are people on SSD eligible for Medigap plans or can only enroll in Advantage plans? Well, it just depends on your state. Here's the way it works. National law says this, that insurance companies do not have to offer supplemental plans to those coming into Medicare under age 65. Okay, so if you came in at 60 or 47, most states follow the federal guidelines. They do not make insurance companies offer supplemental plans for those less than 65. However, there are some states that require it. They say the insurance companies offering supplemental plans, you must make those available. Some say, even though they have to make them available, they can charge a higher rate. And so what do you think companies do then? They just price it out of the market because they don't want to offer those plans. Other states say you can charge more, but you can't charge much more. Others say you can't charge any more. You would have to charge the same rate to a 60-year-old person on a Medigap policy coming through disability as you would someone new into Medicare at 65. All right, so it just depends on your state. Flora, give us a call. We know all those states, tell you all the rules, and be happy to walk you through that process. All right, I've been going to VA for medical care since I was discharged in 1977. Do I need to sign up for Medicare too since I get all the care and meds from VA? I'm 70 with only Part A and only because required. What else is there? Is that it?
He said I'm 70 with only Part A. Yes.
Only because.
But only because it's required.
Okay, that sounds good. Hey, Will, it is fine for you to continue on doing what you're doing. The only risk you run and by the way, I don't think this is a huge risk, but here's your risk. If you continue on like you are and don't take Part B, for every year 12 months, for every 12-month period, that we go without Part B when we were eligible to get it and should have had it, we are charged a 10% penalty on top of our Part B premium. All right, so every 12 months, you're being assessed a 10% penalty. So you're 70. So if you haven't been working since 65 and eligible for Medicare, right now, if you went on, you have a 50% penalty added to your Part B. Part B right now is $185. So they'd be adding $92.50 a month to your Part B premium every month for the rest of your life. And so those Part B premiums are just those penalties are just going to continue to go up. And so if you're confident that, hey, I'm always going to be happy with the VA and you're pleased there and you don't want to spend the extra money, then just keep doing what you're doing. Okay, it's fine. I just want to make sure you know the risk. Now, when I have someone who is in a position where they're not happy with the VA, then my story is a little different. I would say I'd go ahead and get on B. So you'll have a civilian option. But if you're happy with the VA and you feel like that's going to be long-term lifetime, all right, then just keep having A only. Just know that you're, of course, bound to that VA system, all right? Which I think is fine and improving, so it's all right. Next. Lori, I live in New York and will take an Advantage plan for 2 years. Then I'm moving to Michigan. Can I pick up regular Medicare and a supplemental plan without medical screening when I move? Okay. Okay, when you move from one state to another, you do have a guaranteed issue right. And so I'm assuming that you're starting Medicare after 1/1/2020. So when you move to Michigan, you will have a guaranteed issue right on a Plan G. Okay. If you want a Plan N or some other plan, then you would have to go through medical underwriting to do that. And so the answer to your question is yes. When you get to Michigan, you have a GI right. And so, by the way, we do a lot of business in both of those states, so just let us know when you make that move and we can facilitate that. Just be sure that you keep your all your insurance documentation so that we can prove that you've had the plan and that then you lost the plan. The biggest thing for you, the most important thing, is to keep that termination letter because that will say you've lost the plan because you moved, therefore the insurance company, MedSup company, will approve your application. So yes, you can do that. All right, can the deductible for Plan N increase over time? No. Supplemental plans and the terms of them, other than the premium, are lifetime. If you have a G plan, you pay the B deductible, whatever it is, okay? Whatever Medicare sets that to be. N plan is the B deductible, excess charges, couple copays, right? And so what happens is when the government raises the Part B deductible, then your deductible is going to increase. But the Plan N didn't do that. So I just want to clarify that. Last year, the B deductible was $240. Anyone on a G plan or N plan, if they had medical expenses up to $240, they had to pay that. This year, that deductible bumped up to $257. But it wasn't the N plan that did that, the G plan that did it. The Medicare did that. But because the G and N doesn't cover it, then you'd be out of pocket this year, $257, okay? I just want to make sure you know the terms of the N plan do not change. It's just that the N plan says we don't cover the B deductible. So whatever that is, you have to pay that out of your pocket once a year, just like you would on the G plan, okay?
All right, that's it.
All right, sounds good. Well, folks, thanks so much. Next Monday, 5 o'clock, Medicare Monday, we have an event, and then we'll be back at this again next Thursday. Tell your friends about us. If we can help in any way, please reach out to us. Appreciate you attending tonight. Have a good evening.